did these not?
Give it back.
It's like, how are we really? Come on.
Yeah, but if some, or do,
The other niece, she actually has a 5-month-old.
They'll do all that towards the last. Give you play That's pretty exciting.
Clock is ticking.
graduation.
Gosh, you got quiet awful quick. Everyone's waiting.
We're anticipating you. Start this.
It's like in the movie Trading Places.
Yes, it's 6:01.
Yeah.
All right, Carla, please call roll.
Mark Arnold,
Here.
Whitney Hall,
Here.
Cody Haney,
Here.
Marvin Kusick,
Here.
Eddie Mack, Cole Ream,
Here.
Don Roberts.
Here.
Having a quorum, I hereby call this Metropolitan Area Planning Commission regular meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is to consider approval of the minutes of the regular Metropolitan Area Planning Commission meeting of April 18, 2016. If you've all had a chance to look at those, I'll ask for a motion.
Motion to
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as printed. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, a point of order.
Yes,
I
sir.
understand that you have been married for 50 years now. I want to congratulate you publicly on your achievement.
Thank you, sir. My wife has put up with me for 50 years, so she's the one that needs to receive the accolades. Okay, moving on, the next item is to reappoint Cole Ream to the Historic Preservation Commission. I need a motion to do that.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second to reappoint Cole Ream to the Historic Preservation Commission. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries. I have been asked to move item 10-1 to the next spot because we will be missing one of our commissioners, and the only way that we can vote on this is to have a supermajority. So we will be moving item 10-1, which is the sidewalk variance. Chris, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're talking about 1626 Madison Drive this evening. It is in the Skyview Estates. It's defined in the slide in the yellow box. As you know, the City Commission has gone through 5 different variations of their sidewalk ordinance. And under the current ordinance, it applies to new developments and new subdivisions. And this was platted as a new subdivision. It was approved at the time with sidewalks. And the Gelsthorpes are here to talk to you, and they are seeking a variance to that. Are there any questions staff can answer? Okay. We have, you signed up, Marlene?
If you would, please.
Some information that will be helpful to.
Sure.
If you would, please, ma'am, introduce yourself.
Yes, I will. First of all, my husband I asked him if he wanted me to talk or him to talk, and he said, well, you've done all the talking for the last 31 years. You might as well continue tonight. So here I am. My name is Marlene Gelsthorpe. And just so you'll know a little bit about the person addressing you this evening, I'm a retired teacher. I taught at Enid High School for 30 years. I'm currently working with my husband, Jim Gelsthorpe, who is the Director of Transportation for the Enid Public Schools. He does we do the routing and activities for the Enid Public Schools. I grew up on a farm southeast of Waukomis, and I've lived my entire adult life in Enid. If I may, can I just give you a little bit of background on why I'm here tonight and how I came to be here? Okay. I'm here this evening because I've always believed if you don't like the way something is, you do something about it. Don't just sit and complain, but do something about it. I'm here to ask for a variance for the city's sidewalk ordinance for our new house located at 1626 Mason Drive, which is in the Skyview Estates Edition. I don't know if I'm able to do this, but I kind of am speaking for several people in that area that are building houses. Mr. Slater, that's sitting next to my husband, is building the house at the end of the block, and I have a map here I'll show you in just a minute. The first page of the handout is the map, and he's got it on the overhead, but I've kind of plotted some of the houses. We're kind of in the middle. There's another one next to us, the Becks, and then the Slaters are the last one. I took this map up of Bing, and at the time, all of it wasn't there. This was probably a couple years ago. All of the houses on Mount Vernon into the addition, none of them have sidewalks. If you go down to the south end of Mason Drive, none of them have sidewalks. And I'm not sure why they're calling this a new development, because we are part of Skyview Estates that's been around since either the late 1900s, early 2000s. We just happen to be the very last few houses that are being built there. I started off by calling Rodney Tim, because I happen to know him, and I said, well, let me back up a little bit. There are two sidewalks in that addition right now. The Edwards house and the Simrod house, they're professional builders, and when they went to get their permits, they were told, yes, you have to have sidewalks. Larry did not want to put the sidewalk in, but he's not the type to fight City Hall. He put it in. He told me the other day, if a variance was granted, he will tear it out, because he thinks it looks stupid, and he said it backs up next to the neighbors. If you'll look at the next 2 pages, I took pictures of his sidewalk. It goes to the neighbors and dead ends, because none of the other houses on Mount Vernon coming in have sidewalks. There will just be the 4 houses at the end of that block that have sidewalks. When I called Rodney, he said, well, as you know, the sidewalk variance has gone back and forth. He said, my understanding is it is only for new development, and he gave me the example of the housing addition, Stonebridge, whatever it's called, behind Walmart. He said, of course, that's a new development, they will be required. And that's where he thought it was left. He told me to call Chris. I called Chris. Chris went to, sent it to the city attorney, and her response is included also. Her answer was, yes, not only are there sidewalks in that subdivision, but it's also new development, which would require sidewalks anyway. Again, if you drive in, there is not a single sidewalk all the way in, and once you get halfway down Mason Drive, it would dead end again. Seth Slater is gonna be the very last one, and so if he has to have a sidewalk, it's gonna dead end into his neighbors. When we first decided to build the house, we started driving around different sections in town, and we were looking at Falcon Crest and Skyview Estates. After we started building, we continued to drive around, check the progress, and see how the houses were developing. We noticed that in Falcon Crest, none of those houses were building sidewalks. So I asked the city manager, Mr. Gilbert, to check and see what has happened in that area. And his email is also included, and basically, all of the houses that I asked about in Falcon Crest, most of them are on Chelsea Court. Chelsea Court was kind of the last street in that addition, kind of like Mason Drive's the last one in our addition, and all of those have been granted variances. 2927 Chelsea Court, 3026 Chelsea Court, 3126 Falcon Crest. All of those, it says, they're considered infill developments and sidewalks are not required because of B3 above, since the subdivision did not already have sidewalks. And I feel like that we're kind of in the same position as that area. Again, there were no sidewalks and they're gonna back up to nowhere. Questions, comments?
I got a question, maybe more for staff, Gelsthorpe. How is it that the other houses in that, up there on that northern street, how did they make it without having sidewalks?
I don't know. And in fact, on that very first, on that map, there's a V, you see the little red V? That one has already been granted a variance, and it's just barely started. I noticed on your website, the permit, number 10 on that, where you get your permit, the checklist for the permit, says sidewalks may be required, ordinance passed and effective 3/2016. Does that mean if you start your house after that time, you complete your house after that time? What does that mean? You see what I'm talking about on that very last page? Sidewalks may be required, ordinance passed and effective 3/2016.
Did you want to ask?
Yeah, I still want to kind of come back. Chris and I made
Okay.
eye contact. He might be able to answer my question.
We'll need the podium, but we'll wait until you're finished, and then
Okay.
we'll answer the commission's questions.
Okay. My husband gave me a good analogy. Again, he's the director of transportation, and that area is bused to both Waller and to Enid High School. And we feel like it would be like saying, if we get a phone call asking about transportation in that area, if we were to single out that half a block on Mason Drive and those 4 houses at the end of Mount Vernon and say, well, you're gonna be treated different than everyone else in that area. Everybody else gets to ride the bus, but you don't get to ride the bus. Again, I think we need to use some common sense. There are no sidewalks in that area with the exception of the 2 that they were forced. And I know for a fact Larry's gonna tear his out if he can. So we're just asking for fairness and to be treated the same as the houses that are in Falcon Crest that were granted variances.
You mentioned bus stop. Is it a common bus stop location that's, for instance, at the end of the road, or is it?
The bus stop
Up at the
in
individual houses?
that area is actually at Mount Vernon and I think it's Daybreak Circle. Yes.
It's the first cul-de-sac.
First cul-de-sac, so everybody would have to walk to the bus stop.
That's the sidewalks now, that same intersection.
No, that's not where the bus stop is. The bus stop is at the beginning of the addition, at the very beginning. When you first come in on Mount Vernon, there's a cul-de-sac, and that's where the bus stop is. I just don't know how practical it is to have a sidewalk that's half a block long. The 2 houses at the end of Mount Vernon, the Simrods and the Edwards home have the sidewalks. Then there's 2 other X's. Those go straight to the wheat field that I believe is owned by the city of Enid and is going to be at Wheatfield for at least 7 more years, what I was told, that it's leased to a farmer for at least 7 more years, and then maybe would be a retention pond at some point.
Any more questions for her? I don't believe there are any more questions. If you don't have anything else,
Okay.
we'll let Chris give us some answers that we asked for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Angela Rasmussen, our code official, is here. She has a presentation that'll answer your question.
Good evening.
Here it is, Angela.
Thank you. Hopefully, I can shed some light on some of the information that she presented. And as far as how staff looked at this when we required sidewalks for this particular plat. Pointer?
Push this button.
Okay. This is the platted area that the Gelsthorpe property is in. This is a new plat that was platted in 2013. The improvement plans that were submitted to the engineering department showed sidewalks on the improvement plans. So when that was developed, it included sidewalks on the plans, unlike the other area in Skyview Estates. This is an overview of the Skyview Estates addition, and here's the grassy area she was talking about. This is this area right through here. Here's our definitions and when we analyze whether a sidewalk is required or not. You'll see when the last ordinance passed, there was a definition for infill development as well as a definition for new development. We had actually seen several variances come through, as she had mentioned, on lots like that were in a similar situation, like 2001 Mount Vernon, and not in this particular situation, but in those similar to that in the past, which you all know, variances had been granted when you had one sidewalk in the middle of an area that was already developed. This particular plat was done in 2009, and this was the last lot left. When we permitted that, we called that an infill lot, and we did not require that that property do a sidewalk. Mrs. Gelsthorpe had also mentioned to the city manager 4620 Level Lane, which is up right at the start of Skyview Estates. That plat was done in 1998, and that was one of two lots, I believe, that was left undeveloped in that area. This was permitted with a sidewalk being required. They have not asked for a final. I don't know if they're going to do the sidewalk or not. They haven't spoken with staff about it, as far as I know. If they don't do it, then we could probably call this lot an infill lot. Mrs. Gelsthorpe also mentioned several lots in the Willow West 4th Edition, the two on Chelsea Court and the one on Falcon Crest. The one on Falcon Crest has not requested a variance. It's still under construction. It was permitted requiring a sidewalk. I don't know if they're planning on doing it. Once again, they haven't spoken with staff, but it was on the permit as a requirement. The two on Chelsea Court, they asked for a variance under the previous sidewalk ordinance to the one we're currently in. When the new sidewalk ordinance was granted, staff believed that we could call those two infill lots, because if you look, and I'm kind of at a disadvantage because that's too far away, so. Bear with me 1 second while I find that sheet. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 lots in the blue area that were undeveloped out of this plat that was done in 2007. And like I said, Chelsea Court had wanted to come in and ask for a variance, but we believed that they could qualify now as an infill lot. So if they need to do a sidewalk, you may see that variance come in. But if they do a sidewalk, they will never link to another sidewalk in that area. In the green area, we have one undeveloped lot, other than 2927 Chelsea Court. Once again, was going to come in and ask for a variance until the new version of the ordinance, because they would have had a sidewalk there, then no sidewalk, then a sidewalk on 3029. Okay. Here's an area very similar to what we have going on in the Gelsthorpe's plat. This is in Wilderness Cove, And if you notice, most of this is developed now, except the area in the blue, that's outlined in the blue. And they are doing sidewalks on all 22 of those lots. I put this slide in here as an example. I believe all the gentlemen here probably saw these variances. I know Ms. Hall did not, as she wasn't on the Planning Commission at the time. But variances were granted on these two lots because they were viewed as infill lots, which is why when the ordinance changed, we added a section for infill lots, so that we wouldn't have a one here and a one there and no sidewalks anywhere else. The gentleman who asked for this variance is, can you start that again? Okay. Is the developer of this property right here. He did not come in and ask for a variance on this one. So I believe he saw this as new development, which is how staff saw this whole plat. And that's why those decisions were made, if that helps. Okay?
Did that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yes.
Thank you. Good job.
And if I can address the applicant, I understand and appreciate your idea about having sidewalks to nowhere looks pretty dumb. That's why we've had several updates to this. From a real estate standpoint, we could have easily called this the Gilsthorpe First Edition. Developers a lot of time will just continue a name. That's why you have blocks 13 through 15. There are some areas of town, older areas especially, where you'll only have 10 or 12 lots in an area, and that's a little neighborhood. And so this is a new development. And if you were one of 3 lots left, I would probably agree with you, but I'm sure the house to the south on the photograph, it would appear it hasn't gotten to the point. Has staff received a variance request on that at all?
No, sir.
Okay. So just looking at that picture, they haven't even cut the curb yet to pour the driveway, and that would all be done at the same time, so.
Okay, we're running a little short of time because I believe one of our commissioners is possibly going to have to leave. So at this point, I'm going to call for a motion. Do I have a motion to approve or a motion to deny?
I'm going to make a motion to deny.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second to deny. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Those against the denial? I have one. Okay, the denial stands.
The recommendation then to the city commission will be to
Now,
deny.
This will go to the city commission as a recommendation from us. You still have a chance to talk to them and go from there. Okay. The next item on the agenda is item 4.1, to consider the rezoning for property described as the east half of the east half, southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 9, Township 22 North, Range 7 west of the Indian Meridian, Garfield County, Oklahoma, located at 5810 West O&K Garriott Road, from Agricultural District to C2 Planned Business Center District. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is located immediately west of the Atwoods property, and there's the site. The C2 area is Atwoods, and the site being considered this evening for rezoning from agricultural C2 is outlined in the yellow box. Atwoods is interested in purchasing this property and matching the zoning with what their current store is, and they have given us a, oh, we did not include it. The purpose of this property, if it's approved, is they're going to have truck parking for semis, and I can kind of illustrate that. Where right south of the word site is, they'll come off of Garrett, and there'll be temporary storage parking there for the semis. It'll be a secured area. And when Atwoods brings them through, there's a larger parking to the north of the word site, and then that's when they'll enter the facility. So some of these trucks will arrive at early morning hours, middle of the night, and they'll be able to have a place to be and park until it's time for their goods to be received by the Atwoods. We have advertised according to our ordinance. We have received no protests to the rezoning. It's staff's recommendation to approve.
Is this just for Atwood's truck parking only?
Yes, sir.
So are they putting in the ACL, decel lanes?
Yes. We will cover all those details in the site plan.
There will be no other industrial activities there.
No, sir.
Any other questions? Call for motion. Have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. We have no use by review. Item 5, we have no plats. We have a lot split. 7.1 is to consider a lot split for lots 13, 14, 15, and 16, Block 51 Webster Park Edition, located at the northeast corner for 27th Street and Maple. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a lot, you can see there in the yellow, it was platted north and south. The current owner wants to split it in 2 lots, east to west. It is zoned for duplexes, and that is what they want to do, is build 2 duplexes. The issue is, you can see the sanitary sewer on the north designated as green, and then you have the water designated as blue on the south side. My city engineering department has addressed that, and in the plat, you can see here is an easement, so this property owner can get to the sanitary sewer in the alley, and here's an easement right here where this property owner can get to the water line. It meets all of our criteria. It's recommended for approval.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries unanimously. I have item number 8 is traffic. 8.1 is to request by West Side Church of God at 1902 West Chestnut Avenue, Enid, Oklahoma, for a second drive access to Chestnut Avenue. Robert?
Thank you. Chairman, Commissioners, this is a request for a second driveway off of Chestnut, which for the church property, which lies between Van Buren and Cleveland Street. And we have a location map showing where the existing drive and proposed drive is located. The ordinance requires that drives and arterial streets be reviewed by the Planning Commission acting as the traffic committee. This property does have frontage across these property lines of 300 feet, which meets the standard for secondary drives on arterial street. So it meets our standards for approval for secondary drive and recommended for approval. Happy to answer any questions.
The agenda says approve second drive as an exit only. Is that something that you, I don't see any need for.
That's right. The applicant proposed this as an exit only. It's not a requirement in the standards, but they have, I think from the lay of the land, I think from their traffic patterns, they wanted to be as an exit only so that it works for their traffic patterns on site.
Any other questions? Motions?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries.
Thank you.
And thank you, Robert. There are no easements. We've taken care of 10-1. Item 11 is to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
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 We're adjourned.
On record, but it's close.